I was eating leftover pizza and watching a basketball game last Tuesday night when someone knocked on my apartment door at 9:30 p.m. And when I opened it, a 10-year-old girl with my exact green eyes was standing there holding a backpack. She looked up at me with this serious expression and said, "Hi Dad, I know this is weird, but I'm Lily, your daughter from 15 years in the future, and I need your help. My name is Ben Carter, I'm 26 years old. I'm not dating anyone seriously, and I definitely don't have any kids, so you can imagine how my brain just completely shut down for a second. But here's the thing that made me listen instead of closing the door. She had a birthmark on her left wrist in the exact shape of a crescent moon, the same distinctive mark that my mom had, that I have, and that according to my family history, only appears once every other generation." I stood there staring at her, trying to process what she'd just said. She was wearing jeans and a purple hoodie, had dark curly hair pulled into a ponytail, and carried herself with this weird confidence that no normal 10-year-old should have. "I know you don't believe me yet," she said, pulling out her phone, which looked way more advanced than anything currently on the market. "But I can prove it, look." She showed me a photo of myself, clearly older, maybe in my early 40s, standing with her and a woman I didn't recognize at what looked like a graduation ceremony. "How did you even find me?" I asked, still blocking the doorway. She explained that in her timeline, in 2039, I'd told her stories about living in this exact apartment when I was 26, about how I'd been working as a graphic designer and spending too much time alone. "You told me the address so many times that I memorized it," she said. "And I needed to come back to this specific year because something happens in 3 days that changes everything, and not in a good way." I let her in, partly because I was curious and partly because it was cold outside and she was just a kid, whoever she really was. She sat on my couch and immediately started explaining in this rapid-fire way that reminded me of how I talk when I'm nervous. According to her, in 3 days on Friday, I was supposed to meet someone named Claire at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind. In the original timeline, we'd hit it off, started dating, and eventually she'd become Lily's mother. But something had changed recently, something that meant Claire wouldn't show up to that meeting, and if we never met, Lily would never be born. "Wait, hold up," I said, sitting down across from her. "If you're from a timeline where your mom and I meet and you exist, how can you be here warning me about a timeline where we don't meet? Wouldn't you just cease to exist?" She smiled like she'd been waiting for that question and pulled out a small device from her backpack that looked like a silver bracelet with glowing blue lines running through it. "This is a temporal anchor," she explained. "As long as I'm wearing it, I exist independently of my origin timeline for about 72 hours. After that, the physics gets complicated and I need to return or risk temporal dissolution." She told me that in her present, in 2039, time travel technology had become available but was strictly regulated by the government. Her mom Claire worked for the Temporal Protection Agency, and she discovered that someone had been illegally altering past events. "Mom found out that someone went back and changed something that prevents her from going to the Daily Grind on Friday," Lily said. "She tried to investigate, but they're watching her too closely, so she helped me sneak back to warn you." Apparently Claire had given Lily detailed information about how and where we were supposed to meet, hoping I could still make it happen somehow. I asked her what specifically had been changed, and her face got serious. In the original timeline, Claire's best friend Jessica was supposed to invite her to try out this new coffee shop on Friday afternoon. But someone went back and convinced Jessica to take a job in another city last month, and she moved away 2 weeks ago. Without Jessica suggesting the coffee shop, Claire has no reason to go there, and you two never meet. The specificity of it was either incredibly well-researched fiction or actually true, and I was starting to lean toward the latter. "So what am I supposed to do?" I asked. "I don't even know who Claire is or where to find her." Lily pulled out a notebook and showed me pages of information. Claire's current address, where she worked as a data analyst, her daily routine, even her favorite foods and hobbies. "I'm not saying you should stalk her," Lily said quickly. "But you need to create a situation where you two meet naturally at the Daily Grind on Friday around 2 p.m., just like you were supposed to." The ethical implications of essentially engineering a relationship made me uncomfortable, but Lily's pleading expression made it hard to say no. We stayed up until midnight making a plan. According to Lily's notes, Claire went to a yoga class every Friday morning at a studio 3 blocks from the Daily Grind. In the original timeline, Jessica had been raving about the Daily Grind all week, so after yoga, Claire decided to check it out, Lily explained. "We need to recreate that suggestion somehow without Jessica." I suggested maybe I could talk to Claire after the yoga class, mention the coffee shop casually, but Lily shook her head. It needs to feel organic, not forced. If she thinks you're hitting on her or being weird, she avoid the coffee shop entirely. After hours of brainstorming, we came up with a plan. I'd go to the daily grind on Thursday and Friday morning, become a regular, and befriend the barista. Then I'd casually mention that they should put up flyers at the yoga studio since it was so close by. If the barista put up a flyer, Claire might see it and decide to check out the coffee shop after her Friday class. It was convoluted, but it was the most natural-seeming approach we could devise. The key is that you can't force it, Lily emphasized. The timeline wants you two to meet. We just need to give it a little nudge in the right direction. Thursday morning, Lily was still crashed on my couch, and I'd spent half the night wondering if I'd lost my mind for entertaining this whole thing. But when I saw her sleeping there, looking so much like the childhood photos of my mom, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was telling the truth. I made breakfast, and we went over the plan again before I headed to the daily grind. The coffee shop was a cozy place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls, exactly the kind of spot I'd normally hang out at if I'd known it existed. I started chatting with the barista, a friendly guy named Marcus, and after my second visit on Friday morning, I mentioned the yoga studio up the street. You guys should totally put up a flyer there, I said. Lots of potential customers who'd want coffee after their workout. Marcus liked the idea and asked if I'd mind dropping off a stack of flyers since I'd mentioned it. I walked them over to the yoga studio around 11 a.m. and the receptionist agreed to put them in the lobby and the changing rooms. At 1:45 p.m., I was sitting in the daily grind trying to look casual while internally freaking out. Lily had stayed back at my apartment, saying it would be too weird if I was hanging out with a 10-year-old when I was supposed to meet her mom for the first time. At 2 p.m. exactly, the door opened and a woman walked in with a yoga mat bag over her shoulder. She had auburn hair, bright blue eyes, and when she smiled at Marcus while ordering, I felt this weird recognition, like I'd known her before, even though we'd never met. She sat down 2 tables away from me and I tried not to stare. After a few minutes, I noticed she was struggling with her laptop, clearly frustrated with something. I debated walking over but remembered Lily's warning about not forcing it. Then Marcus called out, "Hey Ben, you know anything about graphic design software? Claire here is having some issues with a project." I sent a mental thank you to the universe and walked over, and we started talking about her design problem, which turned out to be something I'd dealt with 100 times. We talked for 2 hours straight. She was funny and smart and easy to talk to, and by the time we both realized the coffee shop was closing, we'd exchanged numbers and made plans to meet up again. "This is going to sound random," she said as we were leaving, "but my friend Jessica used to always push me to be more spontaneous, to talk to strangers and try new things, and I'm really glad I listened to that advice today." The mention of Jessica made my heart skip, confirming that Lily had been telling the truth about everything. When I got home, Lily was sitting on my couch looking relieved. "Did it work?" she asked immediately. I told her everything, and she literally jumped up and hugged me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how scared I was that I'd mess this up and just fade away." She showed me her temporal anchor, and the blue lights were pulsing in a different pattern now, more stable and rhythmic. Over the next 2 days, Lily stayed with me, and we got to know each other in this weird father-daughter way that shouldn't have been possible. She told me about her life in 2039, about how Claire and I had gotten married when she was 7, about her little brother who apparently I'd have in a few years. "You're a really good dad," she said on Saturday night. "You're patient and funny, and you always make me feel like my opinions matter." Hearing that from a kid I just met, but who somehow knew me better than almost anyone, was surreal and emotional in ways I hadn't expected. Sunday evening, she said she needed to go back. The temporal anchor was starting to flicker, meaning her 72 hours were almost up. If I stay longer, I could cause a paradox or just dissolve entirely, and Mom made me promise I'd come back safely, she explained. I asked her how the return trip worked, and she said she just needed to activate the device and she'd automatically snap back to her origin point in 2039. "Will I remember this?" I asked. "Will I remember meeting you before you're even born?" She looked uncertain. Mom said that temporal memories are unstable, that you might remember this as a vivid dream or it might fade entirely. But she also said that sometimes the bond between parent and child transcends normal causality, so maybe you'll remember in ways that matter. She hugged me one last time, and I felt this overwhelming love for this kid who was simultaneously my daughter and a complete stranger. "Take care of Mom," she said. And when I'm actually born, tell me about this someday, even if you only half remember it. She pressed a button on the temporal anchor, and the air around her started to shimmer. One more thing, she said as she began to fade. In 6 years, when I'm 4 years old, I'm going to ask you why I have a crescent moon birthmark. Tell me it's a reminder that some things are written in the stars, but we still have to choose to make them happen. Then she was gone, just completely vanished, and I was standing alone in my apartment with nothing but a weird sense of déjà vu and the faint smell of ozone. I saw Claire again on Monday, and we had our second coffee date. She mentioned that her best friend, Jessica, had just called her from Seattle, saying she was thinking about moving back because she missed everyone. Apparently she got a better job offer here, Claire said, looking happy. It's funny how things work out sometimes. I wondered if the timeline was correcting itself, filling in the gaps that Lily's intervention had created, making the world make sense again. Over the next few months, Claire and I got serious fast. There was this ease between us, like we'd known each other forever, and I kept having these moments of déjà vu where I'd know what she was about to say before she said it. She noticed it too, commenting that we had this old soul connection that felt rare and special. I never told her about Lily's visit, partly because I wasn't sure how to explain it, and partly because the memories were already getting hazy, like trying to remember a vivid dream weeks after you had it. We got engaged 2 years later, married the year after that, and when Claire got pregnant, I knew somehow that it would be a girl. The night Lily was born, when they put her in my arms for the first time, she had the crescent moon birthmark on her left wrist, and I started crying for reasons I couldn't fully articulate. Claire asked if I was okay, and I told her I was just overwhelmed, which was true, but it was also because I was holding my daughter who I'd somehow already met, who traveled through time to make sure she could exist. 4 years later, exactly like future Lily had predicted, my 4-year-old daughter asked me about her birthmark. "Daddy, why do I have a moon on my arm?" she said, tracing the shape with her tiny finger. I looked at Claire, who was smiling and waiting to hear what I'd say, and then I looked back at Lily and felt this rush of memory. Fragments of a conversation I'd had with a 10-year-old version of her in an apartment I no longer lived in. "It's a reminder that some things are written in the stars," I said, the words coming automatically. "But we still have to choose to make them happen." Claire gave me a strange look and said, "That's beautiful. Where did you hear that?" I told her I didn't know, that it just felt right, and she kissed my forehead and went back to making dinner. But Lily looked at me with these serious green eyes I'd seen before in a face that was older, and for just a moment, I swear she smiled like she remembered too. Maybe the bond between parent and child really does transcend causality. Or maybe I'm just projecting meaning onto random moments, but either way, I'm grateful for the life I have, the family I have, and the mysterious girl who knocked on my door and changed everything. Thanks for listening to this story about a daughter from the future and the father who had to choose to make her existence possible. If this tale of temporal intervention and family bonds across time moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Time-Traveling Stories for more narratives that explore the paradoxes of changing the past to protect the future. Drop a comment sharing whether you'd believe a child who claimed to be your future kid or if you think they were pulling an elaborate prank. Don't forget that notification bell so you never miss our next journey into the stories that prove love can create its own timeline.